CaddyInfo.com, Cadillac Chat. We do these on Thursday nights. Air Mike is off goofing around, so but I'm pleased to have Cadillac Jim with me from the forums.
Good evening.
And there's always some danger that Air Mike will show up late, since that's his want anyway. We're missing some of our other friends, and so if you want to join us, there is a link in the forums. There's a jump-in link, and invites are out for everybody who's kind of a regular. And so please feel free to jump in and participate. The last week we were left with a couple of topics that we didn't have time to address, and now I'm not going to have them queued up. But the one of them was high-speed tire selection.
Well, high-performance tires.
High-performance tire selection.
Yeah.
Now you're actually more sensitive on this type of topic than I am. That I believe it's important to get tires that are capable of higher speeds than you intend to travel. So that you're not going 130 miles an hour and have your tire explode, but I am sensitive to the wear rating of the tire, but I'm not that sensitive to whether it's Michelin or Pirelli or Goodyear.
Well, I'm sensitive to the feel, responsiveness, and braking traction of the tire. Those are very important to me, and some experiences I had at the end of life of my first set of tires on the Eldorado might bring that to light. I went to the dealer first because I figured, they would wanted to do it. And they did offer OEM tires, and they also had another line of tires, which I found out later were sold for the DeVilles, which were much less. And the service manager said, "Oh, we really just have to put these on because they're so much cheaper than the I forget what they call them, but the OEM tires that came on it." And so she put them on it, and I drove it out, and it felt like a damn DeVille. Mushy, hard steering, no feel, and you turn the wheel hard and it'd plow. And I didn't try braking on it, but I knew what that was going to be like. So I drove straight to a tire store and said, "I want Michelin pilots." And he looked down his nose and says, "On an Eldorado?" And he and he would not sell me the Michelin pilots. He ended up selling me some Michelin XAVs or something. He says, "These are OEM BMW tires, and they'll be an upgrade to what you're used to." And I drove out on them, and I was moving to the East Coast in a couple of weeks. And so it was not, they were what I would call acceptable. If I'd had time, I wouldn't have taken them. I would have taken them off. But I wasn't going back to that guy because I had already done some research, and I wanted Michelin pilots.
Right.
And so I went ahead and drove them off, but I did have one fender bender because of poor stopping distance at one point. Somebody cut in front of me in traffic, and I thought I had room to stop, but I did not because the tires didn't hold as well as I'd expected. And I hated the handling the whole time, and Michelin's wear like iron. I shouldn't have been so hard-headed. So I got some Michelin Pilot Sports. And it was like the world had come back to me, although I went to a tire store and they started to tell me that, "Oh, this is shit, this is shit." And I knew that the tire names that they were throwing out were, including some of their own, were false, that they were perfectly good tires. And so I went away from them and ended up going to the tire rack and having them put on. And that's why I've been telling everybody ever since, pick out your tires, and don't insist on, don't allow any substitute, and never let a tire store recommend your tires because it will not work out for you. They will tell you what they think, and that may or may not be what you think. And if you're a motorhead and a car enthusiast and you're driving a Cadillac, they will most certainly think you're driving an old boat. Because I have had people to my face call my car a boat that when I was driving the Eldorado. Anyway, to me, tire performance has as much to do with feel, responsiveness, handling, and traction as it does to do with mileage and speed rating. You can get really good handling tires in an H rating. In fact, the OEM Cadillac tires were, H rated.
Right.
And they were on a par with anything else I ever had the whole time I had that Eldorado. That's why I took a chance and bought Goodyears when they came out for the CTSV, and I am eminently satisfied with them. I haven't had the OEM Michelin's, but you can only drive so many tires in so many years. But
Right.
unless you're a glutton, so I don't know if I'm going to have them, but I suspect that they're at least equivalent.
Now, that may be the other thing, is because tires only ever have a short lifetime on my cars. And so I can't get too used to any set of tires, because tires are about an annual event at my house.
So tire wear is a much more important thing to you.
Yeah.
Well, my tires are oversized and they don't wear that bad. You know,
Oversized on the V?
yeah, I am. They have a weight rating that far exceeds the weight of the car. That's what I mean by
Oh,
oversized.
I see.
And when a tire's like that, it's not going to wear quickly, assuming everything else is adjusted properly, alignment and so forth.
Oh, I find if the car is sliding around the corner, it wears the tires quickly.
Yes, it will do that. And also, it speeds much over about 100. Well, then you tend to have a slip angle on the tires, which is not zero most of the time, which
Right.
a lot of people don't realize. It's like driving a flat bottom boat when you're up over 100, and it doesn't feel that different, a little light. But I've seen people try to swerve, and they just simply start the car rotating, and they can't stop it rotating. You see that? That's what that's all about. So when you get a car over the speed you're used to driving it, think flat bottom boat, and you'll keep yourself safe. But
yeah, that's how I tend to think of, tell when my tires have become worn, is if I'm going aggressively around the corner and the back end begins to slide, or will slip a bit going around the corner, then I'll stop, at the next opportunity and check where the treads are.
Yeah.
You would think as you lost tread, the tire would corner better. So why isn't that the case?
Well, the compliance of the rubber on the road decreases when the tread depth gets too small. And therefore, the percentage of the rubber that's actually in contact with the road decreases. Pressure goes up, coefficient of friction goes down, traction goes to hell, like that. Another thing that can do it is a compound getting hard, which can happen with age or improper storage. Like if you live in, say, northern part of the Sudan, not Sudan, Egypt. I guess Sudan would be better because it's equatorial. But if where the temperature outside gets to be 135, and you don't park your car in the shade all day, well, then your tires are not going to go your usual 4 years. So you'll be lucky to get 2 years out of them. So that just to make a point. Also, I found that you can get sidewall cracks if you use a lot of Armor All and other stuff on your tires to make them look nice every weekend. I tend to not use anything but a brush and water, or worse, soap and water if I have grease on the tires, which is rare. And try to not to do anything that'll attack the rubber. Also, be careful where you park your car. If you see a parking place that's full of grease or something that is like that, don't ignore it and park on it because it's not on your shoes. Remember, your tires are on it, and so don't park there. Little things like that. But it all gets down to, do you garage your car? It's a pain, and you usually can't change it if you do or you don't. You're not if you can't if you're using a garage for storage or you don't have a garage, well, then that's that. But garaging a car, I found, makes everything last longer, including the tires.
Yes. Yeah, in my case, I've got my Roadster in the garage, so my SCSV doesn't get to be in the garage. But of course, even if it were in the garage, it would only mostly be there at night, right? Because I have it out during the day.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and most people that work in big plants, and most big plants have big flat parking lots instead of high rises. I work one place in LA that had a high rise parking garage, but in other places I have not had that luxury.
No, we have where mine parks. We have the sun and the blue sky for cover.
Mm-hmm. I had a quad 4HO black when I was working in Atlanta, and I tended to park on the top floor of the parking garage because it only had a couple of floors. And I've always parked on the 4th floor or higher, and those things to keep the people from walking up from the street. and the rear view mirror, which is adhesive held to the windshield, would fall off every year.
Wow.
And I found that was a common experience in Atlanta for people who
Yeah,
park
I had
inside
that issue on mine, but once I repaired it, then it stayed repaired for, the rest of the life of the car.
Well, I did too, except for the rest of the life of the rearview mirror was another year.
There you go.
I tried OEM, I tried parts stores, all the same. GM glue, it doesn't matter, a year.
Now I've been looking to see, was there, and maybe I'm gonna have to sort this out, because I was trying to look to see if there was some way we could use Periscope with Google Hangouts, but I don't see the right interface there. That, in other words, I could run a Periscope of one end of the conversation, but it wouldn't give the interaction. It's great for, hey, here's what's going on here,
Mm-hmm.
but it wouldn't be useful for. All you'd get is my view. I could set up the camera, so all you'd get is my view of the conversation, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Which I don't. Not
interactive.
It'd be much better it'd be interactive to the extent that people could type into Periscope, but I don't know. And it could be that there's such a dearth of what I'd have to do is I'd have to get the camera wouldn't be here, but it'd be right here in front of me. And so basically a reverse photographic stand where I could put the camera in front of me and then have it shoot a video of the screen. So, see, I actually watched people doing this. There was a sports presentation, there was pay-per-view, and what people were doing was they were broadcasting the pay-per-view sports presentation via Periscope so that people could log into their Periscope and watch for free the pay-per-view sports presentation.
My copyright.
Which I can't recommend because you're missing the whole point of the licensing and the pay-per-view and paying the athletes.
Well, that's important.
Yeah, so
nobody's going to beat their brains out for free.
Exactly, but it still seems to me that there would be some way for us to use the nice thing about Periscope is that people can interact more easily. Now, you can interact in a Hangout on your phone, and so if you ever want to phone in, signal me, because there is a way to do that where you can use your phone and contact Google Hangouts and participate just on your phone. So it would be just like you were participating. But what Periscope does have is it has audience. And what it does have is the interactivity where during the video, people will type in questions and so on, just like you can in the Q&A here in Google Hangouts, to be fair. But also the sound, because we both use headsets. So if I had a Periscope running here on the table, focused on the screen, it wouldn't get any sound. It'd just be the video. And we don't have subtitles. If only when you spoke, you got subtitles. So there's another good idea for Google Hangouts. If you're watching Google Hangout Engineers, please add live Google Translate subtitles in every possible language. So whenever Cadillac Jim speaks, then I can get 6 different languages and subtitles below in real time. Language translate, text detection, text conversion, and language translation.
Yeah, somebody outside of Texas could understand what I'm saying.
Exactly. So Cadillac also said today, don't give up on diesels. Of course, what they're making reference to is the Volkswagen was this year caught by the EPA. Volkswagen admitted to cheating on their diesel emissions tests, and but Denishin said, "Hey, it's not diesels that are at fault here. Let's not throw the diesel out with the Volkswagen. let's recognize that there's still value in diesel engines themselves as long as they meet emissions requirements. Which again perhaps confirm that we're going to see a CT6 diesel or an Escalade diesel or both.
I think that'd be great. I think they need to offer the people what they want, and I'm sure the people that want that. How many? I don't know. Cadillac has a better idea than I do of that. But a lot of people like them, and I think that people should be able to get them.
Cadillac is planning
long as they don't drive in front of me.
Well, that's just particulate emission. You see, it's not dangerous climate changing emissions.
Except to my wiper blades.
Well, yeah, I don't like to have particulate on my car. Thank you very much. But the Cadillac says they are going to offer a holiday ad campaign for Escalade. So apparently the Escalade is selling, but they would like to sell a few more. So they're going to have a Christmas campaign for Escalade. I don't know what kind of discount you'll be able to get on your $75,000 Escalade. The average selling price for Escalade is right at $80,000 now. So it's one heck of a truck. Average transaction price is north of $80,000.
Well, for an Escalade truck, it's a bit of a humorous allegory. It's not really accurate the way they build those things now. It does have the same high center of gravity and high ground clearance and things that are blessings and curses, depending on what you're looking for. But if there's anything that size that I would want, it would be an Escalade.
Yes. This campaign will be across broadcast, digital, print, and every other channel, and I'm sure we'll see on Google Plus and Twitter and so on, emphasizing the Escalade's refinement, because consumers might appreciate that it's a big and the Escalade has a presence, right? So they might appreciate that it's large and in charge, but they don't understand how luxurious it is.
Well, you just have to drive one to know.
Exactly. That when I test drove an Escalade, I instantly understood what the lure of the Escalade was. That I actually like small, light when it comes to automobiles. So large, heavy is the opposite. But we really enjoyed the Escalade. And we had an Escalade, the extended length Escalade, and took it out to for a 50-mile drive and really enjoyed it. And it was the platinum variant of the Escalade, and really enjoyed it.
Well, I think the feel that it's in control, but the confidence that it gives you while you're driving, and the fact that it drives like a Cadillac, not like a truck.
Now, I want to repeat again, if Cadillac sincerely wants to sell more Escalades, the Escalade V Sport to me is a no-brainer. Let's see a 505 horsepower Escalade or a 650 horsepower Escalade.
You guys figure out a way to do it. You made the Cyclone once, and it was a world beater. Let's do it with Escalade. Let's let the world look at that and see what we're made of. Yeah.
Now,
can you imagine how big the tires and wheels would be on something like that?
An American vehicle, yes.
Well, 18-inch wide tires on an Escalade with 600, 700, 800 horsepower, that would be nice. That would make me proud.
Exactly.
1,000. Why the hell not?
And then people can ask the same thing I ask about the BMW X M Sports or M version of their SUVs. Why does this car exist?
Why the hell not?
Why the hell not? That's right.
Yeah.
That's the right approach. Is the same, and the same reason we need an XT5 M Sport, V Sport for Cadillac. Cadillac calls theirs V Sport. BMW calls theirs M Sport. And again, the V Sport is halfway in between a normal model and a V model. So if the V model is what I explain to people is the racing version of a Cadillac, then the V Sport is halfway in between. The track version of a Cadillac is the V. Then the V Sport is halfway in between a V and a normal Cadillac.
Yeah. Committed high-performance street car.
Yes. Well, when they first started with the CTSV and the STSV, one of the things they said at the time was the car is designed to run for a full tank of gas on a racetrack without overheating anything.
Well, that's about like a Corvette, race ready, but not necessarily race designed.
Yeah, that was the theme at the time, was you could run it for the full tank of gas and not overheat. Well, here's a brand new Cadillac Escalade ESV with, it's got to have 15,000 miles on it, and they only want $80,000. With 15,000 miles on it, it's $80,000.
Well, I don't think that it's worth the same price as a new one with 15,000 miles on it.
That would be my, well, this is the ESV, so it's the extended length one. So they probably cost a little more new
Well,
than
I'd have
the
to look at the
average
numbers.
Transaction.
But
Yeah.
it's hard for me to believe that a car over a year old is worth $80,000 when it's sold for under $100.
Yeah, I think they're kind of pulling our leg on that one.
Mm-hmm. It might be asking price fishing.
Well, it's, I imagine there's some kind of, they'll loan you money when nobody else would trust you. Kind of, there's some other lure there besides. But if you can't get a loan, you probably don't need an $80,000 Cadillac.
Yeah, but there are people who can't get a loan who want an $80,000 Cadillac. And there are used car outfits that will get the payments out of you as long as you can make them. Then they'll repossess it, fix it up, and do the same thing again. They'll do it as long as the car lasts.
Yes. Now my 2014 twin turbo V Sports have only come down. They were 47. They've come down to 44 now. Mm-hmm. Over about a 7-month period, and so they're still not free. And we haven't seen the 15s pop in yet, because the 2015 V Sport should be showing up in the used markets now. Oh, not quite yet, right? We'll see them early next year.
There are always a few all along, because there's a certain percentage of people who buy a car like that, and then they're blindsided by what their insurance company tells them, or they go out and get a bunch of tickets and have to get rid of it. There's always a few of those, and those tend to be very good used cars.
Yeah, they're not even offering me once I specify to cars.com that I want to talk about Cadillac CTS twin turbo V Sport Premium. Mm-hmm. They're not offering any selection by year, which means that there are only 2014s in the mix.
Right.
And so then those run up to $50,000. The least expensive one's 43, and then the most expensive one is 50,000, mm-hmm. which just means it's at a dealer somewhere. That's Sewell, yeah. Which means they haven't discounted them at all. Now, if you had to get red, I likely do not have to have red, but if you had to have red, then that got us to 45 instead of 43.
I'll take whatever.
Yeah, I think I'd like to stay away from silver, because I've had silver several times in a row. But other than that, and I could probably be talked into silver after I see it. But I still think the V Sport is now, and I'll take us off on a half-hour conversation if we're not careful about. Okay, would you rather have a 2014 V Sport or a 2012 V?
2012 V.
Yeah, but. So let me stay away from that topic. But so what else do we know in the world of Cadillac today?
They're saving up surprises for us. It's more than just that name change. They're changing the platforms, and they're scrambling the model mix. They're staying with the big ones that people like, but they're resampling the model space to try to hit the market where it wants cars.
Well, Cadillac is definitely moving large right now, because the CT6 is going to be significantly larger. We also have the CT6 plug-in hybrid coming. Now, the plug-in hybrid for the CT6 is going to use the 2-liter turbo as its engine.
Yeah,
as its better full gas support, instead of the 1.4 liter that the
ELR
Volt had used. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it'll have the 2-liter, which normally makes at least 260 horsepower. They're saying that the CT6 plug-in is going to make 335 horsepower. So that must mean that it has 75 or 85 horsepower of battery support.
Yeah.
Because if it's supplementing a 260 horsepower engine. So with all the power at the rear wheels, they're saying it's going to do 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds. The plug-in hybrid.
It's quite respectable.
Yeah, so that's going to be just fine. And it'll get better than 30 miles per gallon. Now the 2-liter turbo by itself gets 30 miles per gallon in the ATS.
Mm-hmm.
So with the plug-in, it should get 30 miles per gallon only on gas. And then, on the average day, what we don't know yet is what's its battery only range going to be.
No, that's
We
going to be
would
a big one.
expect that it's at least 35 miles like the ELR, but we're still waiting to hear that.
Well, I think it'll probably be better because if they just scale them both up, well, then the battery will scale with the car, the weight for weight, and that would give it the equal range or maybe a little better. But with the bigger car, they're going to have more slack in terms of being able to increase the weight of the battery as a percentage of the car. So it could be larger. And also battery technology is continuing to improve, although I haven't been tracking it in detail lately.
Well, I misspoke. We do know that it's 30 miles.
It is 30 miles on the CTX.
30 miles. The car's been rated at 65 miles per gallon equivalent. But it's 30 miles of driving on battery alone.
Okay.
So it'll get better than 30 miles per gallon on the 2-liter, I would expect.
Mm-hmm.
It'll go 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds, top speed of 150, which is unusual for an economy car.
Unheard of for an
economy car, and it'll have rapid acceleration. So that seems like a good combination.
Yes.
Now, I guess the question would be, what's the price going to be? Because we know the Platinum gets all the way up to 83,000. So they're starting at 53 on the CZ6. The full boat Platinum is going to be 83, but I don't know if we've heard the price for the hybrid version, the plug-in hybrid.
I don't know. Add 3,000 to 5,000.
No, thank you. Yeah, I think that's probably right. Now, because this would be a plug-in hybrid for those work environments that support that, you'd be able to drive this to work and plug it in, and then recharge while you're working, and then drive it home, right?
I live 40 miles from work.
Yeah, so you'd use a gallon of gas every day.
At least. That's each way.
Well, yeah, so if you could go 30 miles and then you only have to go 10 miles on the gas and then recharge while you're at work.
I think they'd be mad if
30 miles.
I think it'd be mad if I ran an extension cord in because they like to have the doors closed.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for them to recharge through the air, right? Just like I think we'll see that with phones first. And actually with the next version of Wi-Fi, that's one of the things that they're saying is that we'll get some capability to recharge phones via Wi-Fi.
Not going to be a lot of recharging. You just count the watts and there's not much there. You get too much watts in the air and you start having side effects.
Now, there will also be a massive growth in the amount of cancer in this society. Wear your tinfoil hat.
Only on the cheeks and ears.
Only if you're Wi-Fi capable.
Yeah. Wi-Fi plus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, WiMAX, and maybe I'm mixing signals there, but I thought I did read about WiMAX was going to provide some charging capability. But yeah, maybe I'm.
The only wireless chargers I've seen are ones you lay the phone on instead of plugging it in. Though that obviously makes some sense, but I don't see it as filling the air in your room with energy. That's not going to be a very good idea, in my opinion. It's not free, for one thing. That energy just goes away if you don't use it, and so it's an expensive thing to do and it's a wasteful thing to do. And I kind of think it's going to be hard on your house plants. Your canary is going to die if it gets out of the cage and loses the shielding. Oh, I was overheat.
Yeah, and of course that's the first sign things aren't going well. Is they used to use canaries in coal mines as oxygen detectors, and because the canary is small, that if it was very susceptible to if there were gases noxious gases in the air, then the canary was susceptible to that, and so the canary would keel over first, and the miners would know to head to the surface. So,
well, humans are good about 19% oxygen in the air for if they're not overexerting themselves. So canaries, I think, are wheezing desperately by that point. So I think it could have something to do with that too. They're just much more susceptible to problems.
yeah, I'd actually like to see a figure for what's the level of susceptibility, but the whole point was canaries were more susceptible than coal miners.
Yes.
And the canary would keel over before the miner would. But carbon monoxide was what got the canaries, and that's what they worried about in the coal mines. And so today we use carbon monoxide detectors in mines, but before the availability of cheap detectors, the miners turned to canaries and sometimes mice to watch for carbon monoxide. But this is on a United States Department of Labor website, but they don't actually list what's the parts per million of carbon monoxide that a canary is good for. Apparently, they have not done detailed testing on this topic.
Not lately. Not that they want to reference.
So if the government's looking for another $24 million project study to do, that seems like the one, is detecting how many parts per million of carbon monoxide it takes to kill the average canary.
Well, not much.
Yeah. I know other Cadillac topics. Unfortunately, 5 of the articles I read today on Cadillac were, hey, the new XT5 has come out and it's cool, you should buy one.
Oh, that's good. What do they mean by it's cool? Tell me.
They weren't useful. There's no discussion topic here, right? There's you should be excited about the XT5, and of course we're excited about the XT5, but we covered that in great detail last week when it came out. And so all these other news agencies that don't closely follow. Now, the CTS V Sport was named to Car and Driver's 10 Best list this week. So that was good Cadillac news. Popular Science noted the rear view mirror we talked about last week. The video rear view mirror is one of their favorite technologies for 2015. Now, I wasn't clear on the V Sport. Yeah, they just named it to the 10 best cars for this year list. So that doesn't mean it's the best one. It's, in their top 10. So I don't count that as. Now they said all you got to do is get the one for 45,000. Well, for the beginning one, but that's not actually true. That the CTS V Sport comes in a base model and it comes in a premium model, and you actually need the premium model. So if you're shopping for a CTS V Sport, exercise some caution there, because the one that you want is actually the CTS V Sport Premium. And because that gets you all the cool driver features and so on that you would expect in a premium Cadillac. And so as I say, you'll have to exert some buying finesse. But the problem is the difference is $10,000. But when you pick the V Sport Premium, that gives you full leather seats, the high definition reconfigurable gauge display, which is the cool gauges. So instead of conventional gauges, you basically get a video panel for your dash. It gives you authentic carbon fiber or wood inserts, full reconfigurable heads-up display so that you can program what you want in your heads-up display. The alloy sport pedals don't really care, but the fully adaptive cruise control, which is a radar cruise control, the front and rear automatic braking, so the car will detect if you're about to have a crash and brake. The sunroof, which could take it or leave it. The tri-zone climate control could take it or leave it. Advanced security package, I think that's the car alarm. So the big thing the premium does for you in 2016 is the full leather seats and the high and the cool display. So
well, the display's worth probably $2,500, and the leather seats are worth $1,000.
Yeah,
Um,
it's the adaptive cruise is a couple of thousand. The leather
yeah.
seats are probably a couple of thousand. Now,
Yeah.
what we're talking about here is the
So
normal
yes,
CTS would have leather seat surfaces. What the difference we're talking about is whether the sides and the back of the seat are leather or not.
interesting. I'd have to see the seats. I kind of think it's probably worth it.
Yeah, well, there's some trickiness there. So whenever I'm looking for a a used CTS V Sport to consider, I always look for the CTS V Sport Premium because I've come to it has the premium. Premium is Cadillac's way of saying full boat luxury these days, and so I always look for the premium version of a Cadillac when I'm shopping anymore.
Well, if a large
Because
percentage of buyers do that, we're talking resale value too. So that's worth mentioning.
yes, but that gets it to 70,000 by the time you get that, and so that's why looking at the used models running about 43 for the 2014 instead of 70,000 for a new 2016 is why the used models are such an interesting comparison. Now I'm sorry, that's the 2016 is right at 69,500, and that includes $2,000 cash back. So they're actually 71,000 by the time you get the premium.
And the gas guzzler tax. Yeah, I was thinking on the electric vehicle, that would be in the equation. These cars, it's not. I'm not sure. Well, I don't know. What is the EPA highway and city and overall ratings?
Well, I think the twin turbo has very similar ratings to the 3.6 liter. Let me see if I can get the specs on that. But I think it's 25 or 28 in that range. Build your own trim and specifications. Da, 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 da. And let's choose the 3.6 liter twin turbo V Sport Premium. And it's showing me highlights. Da, da, da. And now let's choose safety, fuel efficiency, 16 and 24. So you're giving up a bit because if you stayed with the 2 liter, you could get 21 and 31. And by going to the 3.6 liter, the V Sport Premium, you're getting down to 16 and 24. So if you went with the 3.6 liter, it's 20 and 30 for the new 3.6 liter with the start stop. So that's wonderful.
I think the 16 and 24 will have a gas guzzler tax. I think the bottom number being under 18 or something like that gets you the gas guzzler tax.
Now, I didn't note if when I was looking at that screen before we switched to the discussion of, and I didn't note whether that included a gas guzzler tax or not. Let's see if in the pricing summary it says the Phantom Gray Metallic, the tires, it doesn't appear to show a gas guzzler tax.
Then they dodge the bullet.
Yeah. I don't know what the limit on a gas guzzler tax is, and as you say, maybe it's due to it's a comparison of what does your car get, and what does you have to be under 22.5 this year
To get a gas guzzler tax. Is that on the highway or overall?
Gas guzzler. It's combined.
Okay.
The basics. The U.S. government introduced the gas guzzler tax as part of the Energy Tax Act. Since 91, cars with a combined fuel economy rating under 22.5 have been subject to a tax. Light trucks, which include virtually all sport utility vehicles, pickup trucks, and vans, are not subject. So it's only automobiles. So I guess this one would be. They just don't show it on the sticker.
Yeah.
Well, that's just wrong.
Well, yeah. Or maybe it's included in the top line number or the drive line cost.
Possibly. MSRP less cash offers, excludes installation taxes, excludes tax, title, license, and dealer fees.
I'll look under the powertrain cost, because that's where the gas guzzler tax would be added in or not.
Yeah, it doesn't show a line breakout for a powertrain. But yeah, I think the V Sports are wonderful cars.
Uh-huh.
The V, of course, is what I should be getting
Uh-huh.
because I'm a big too much horsepower is just enough, and I'd like why don't we add headers and why don't we put new cams in and why don't we do and then go test. And so, but the trade-off is still going to be the same one that it was when I shopped for my car, which is, do you want the cool electronic gadgets or do you want the power?
I'll take the power.
Every time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's shop for a CTSV. Now we're going to say less than 20,000 miles. Because less than 20,000 miles, I think, is the sweet spot on where a car can be highly depreciated, but still is pretty new, right?
I'd give it 25,000.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, on cars.com, you can pick
Obviously, you don't have that number.
10,000 mile increments.
Okay.
Okay, so our least expensive 2012 CTSV with 15,000 miles is 41,000, which these cars have really held that range forever, right?
What year is that?
2012.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
2012 CTSV, 15,000 miles, 42,000 basically in red. It's a coupe, which
That's
is
from a
would be
dealer?
fun.
It's from a dealer?
It's at a Toyota dealer.
Yeah, but okay, there's somebody that can warranty the car and back it.
No. So if we were looking at the first one from a Cadillac dealer,
Oh, okay.
so that's a different. My friends over at Crest Auto Group have a 2013 Cadillac CTSV, the sedan, 15,000 miles. This is a 13, but 15,000 miles, but they want $48,000 for it. So you get up to 48 if you insist on it coming from a Cadillac dealer. But they're great guys over there, and they're right here in town in Plano.
Yeah. Well, any car dealer is going to be able to back, a car, for if they give you 90 days. That's something, lemon insurance.
Yeah,
I would say, I wasn't saying it had to be a Cadillac dealer, a certified used car. I just wanted to say if it's sold by somebody who can back the car and, and make a reasonable warranty, 90 days, 30 days, something,
now
more than the curve.
Here's the other edge I've kind of argued is, so we were talking about a 2014 CTS V Sport. So by the time you go to a 2014 from any source, a 2014 for the CTS-V is 49,000.
Yeah.
So it'd actually be $6,000 difference between the CTS-V Sport and the CTS-V. But as I say, I'm enjoying my XLR and my SCSV, and it's still running down the highway just fine. And so I will stay off the market as long as I can and wait for the cars to come even further into reach.
Well, you just bought a car.
Exactly. Just bought a car, the XLR.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that will tide me over for a bit. Now, if the CT6s, the 2-liter turbo in the CT6 starts at 53 now, that would be an interesting buy in a couple of years too, wouldn't it? But it's a much bigger car, 122-inch wheelbase, and I actually like smaller cars. But the CT6 would be an interesting buy if you can find a 2-liter turbo.
Well, I really hope that they get some market penetration. I don't think the current incarnation, what was the LSX? I don't think it or the CT. What was it?
The CTS.
Yeah, the CTX
is going off market, and the CT6 is coming on.
Okay, the CT what?
CTS.
Oh, no. I'm talking about that one that was supposed to be a DeVille replacement.
XTS.
STS. Yeah, the XTS never really got a lot of market penetration.
Yeah, they sold pretty well for a long time, but it was a front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive version and didn't have, sporting pretensions and was pretty heavy. And they did give it the twin turbo V6 at a premium, but the CT6 is going to be really a fundamentally different car. Is going to be the interesting thing. Is this is going to be a big Cadillac in the big Cadillac sense.
Well, they need it. They abandoned that segment, and I think that's such a crime. And it's good to have them back.
Yes. And so even though that's not normally what I shop for. Now, the other thing I will say about the CTSV, like your car, is it does not at all feel heavy
No.
because it has such a terrific power to weight ratio that even though it weighs 4,100 or 4,200 pounds, it doesn't feel it is light and tossable.
Oh yeah, I don't know how they do it with the handling, but it is definitely. My parents had a '53 Packard that drove like a small car, so I've known since then that it's possible. All you had to do is intend, to really put your heart in it. And I'll never forget that '53 Packard 400. It was a huge car, the 327 cubic inch straight eight flathead straight eight, the 180 horsepower and a 4-barrel on it. And it drove like a small car. And I just loved it, just nimble handling, flat cornering, and this effortless feel to when you drove it. It was a beautiful car.
Well, I attribute it in the CTSV's case to the power to weight ratio. That, in other words, that how heavy a car feels is dependent on how much power it has.
Well, I'm not sure that's all the whole story, though. I think a lot of it has to do with the way they manage the steering, the front rear distribution, and how that's handled, and the suspension design and so forth. But I do know that the CTS does drive like a 3,000-pound car, sports car, and I like it.
Yeah, yeah, no complaints. I was really happy with the fact that even though the CTSV has 556 horsepower in the previous generation, the new ones have 640 horsepower. I never felt like it was going to run out from under me, so to speak. I always felt like it was easy to control, easy to drive. It's just you could do amazing things with the car.
Yeah, they try to do that. A lot of it's the computer. You start punching the buttons that tell you about, and you can throw most of that to the winds. You can throw away everything except the part that keeps the shiny side up. They won't let you throw that away, and I think that's a good idea.
Now, Car and Driver's feature on the CT6 today is titled "How We'd Spec It Our 2016 CT6, a Hot Rod with a Sound System." And we've talked about that before. The CT6 is going to have like a 34 speaker sound system.
Is this the one that uses the floor pan as the subwoofer?
Yeah, it has speakers stacked on speakers. It's an amazing. It's going to be an amazing sound, an amazing sound system with a car attached.
That sounds good. So no pun intended. I like it.
So and of course, what you'd want is the full up 3-liter twin turbo variant of the CT6, which would give you, the power and the luxury.
Mm-hmm.
But they're again mentioning that the 2-liter base model is the price leader. Now, I don't know how many 2-liter base models we'll actually see of the CT6, and that'll be an interesting note, is to see how many, whether that's something we see much here in the United States, or whether all the ones we see here are the 3.6-liter V6 with the twin turbo variant to go with it. In other words, at least until they empty their showrooms, the dealers won't be ordering 2-liter turbo variant, $53,000 versions. You'll see mostly $83,000 and $85,000 versions, right?
Yeah. If that, of course, you're talking about sale off a dealer lot. I bought that way several times, but I tend to have a different price equation. I'll go to KVB and look at the different options to get my pricing estimates. So I think that's a little high.
Yeah, they said they'd want the 3-liter twin turbo, the 400 horsepower engine. And if it had come with the twin turbo 8, they would have taken that instead. But they have to. So they say they've got to have the twin turbo 3-liter. they want the magnetic shocks, so they want the active chassis package, which is a $3,000 option. The top sound system is $3,700 with the 34 speakers.
Lord, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, compare that. Porsche charges $6,000 for their top sound system in the Panamera.
How much of that can you pay in sauerkraut?
Or if you promise not to complain about the diesel.
Yeah. I'm to the point of where I feel sorry for him about that. It's I've read some in-depth articles in the Wall Street Journal and so forth, and they had a bunch of people who were under pressure in the early 2000s to take over the market share of Toyota and GM and Ford, and any way they could. And if you look at the high sales they've had of diesel models, they've offered humongous. They're outliers in the trade between emissions and performance, and without that juice they squirt in there to clean up the exhaust, that pre-cat juice.
Yes.
And so the way they get it is, of course, they lie about it. And that's going to hurt.
So to round out their story, they were at 75,000 when they picked the twin turbo 3-liter and the other features, the sound system and the active suspension. So the active suspension, the sound system, and the twin turbo 400 horsepower 3-liter, that got them to 75K. So they felt like that saved them money over an 88K Platinum, CT6 Platinum. But yeah, I think that there's no question that Volkswagen made a bad decision on. It's one thing to try and get away with what you can get away with. That's always kind of been the NASCAR motto, right? Is let's see who can skirt the rules the most successfully. But it's a completely different thing when you program a car to violate the rules.
I think that this was something giving way in the infrastructure. Something went crunch when it was being pushed from all sides, and nobody knew what it was for too long. I really don't blame the.
Well,
the top manager.
I hope that we'll find out that was the case, and not that it was well understood by senior management that they were cheating at the. I think the latter, unfortunately, is the case. That senior management actually did know.
Well, it used to be we would never find out for sure, but I think this time we will. I think we will this time.
Well, I think they've already started firing people over it, which suggests to me that people did know.
Yeah.
And so, but it's hard. Sometimes the requirements are not clear. Sometimes, the same NASCAR guys, they were trying to get away with everything they could, right? So in other words, if the test measured the left side of the car, you can guarantee the right side of the car was optimized beyond the left side, right? In other words, if you measured the front two tires, you didn't know what they were doing with the rear tires, because you were only going to catch them at whatever you were measuring, and they were always going to work around that, work around whatever they were going to game the system. And so then it becomes incumbent on the system to ensure that the test actually tests what you're wanting to find out, right? So in this case, in some sense, I think shame on the EPA for not actually testing the cars in the real world.
No, they were just using those cheap, fast testers. The same machine equipment they use up in the testing centers for your stickers.
Yeah, one of the articles said the way the Volkswagen system senses whether it's being tested or not is if the steering wheel is perfectly still while the car is running, then it's not being driven. And so it must be under test. So it would behave properly.
Yeah.
The other time, they basically locked out the emission controls and did whatever the heck they wanted to do.
If they didn't have that cat juice, they had to do terrible things to the combustion to meet it. So if they turn that software on all the time, it's going to be a terrible performer.
Yeah. What happens when on the system, and we talked about this a little bit, but just to remind our viewers, what happens with this other system is it has a framework that captures and converts the nitrous oxide, but the problem is it fills up with nitrous oxide to remove the nitrous oxide emissions. But the problem is the honeycomb fills up, and so what you do to clear that is the engine actually runs too rich for a short period, which causes fuel to accumulate in the emissions control device, and then the fuel actually begins to burn inside the emissions control device, which cleans the honeycomb in the emissions control device so it can then absorb more nitrogen. So in other words, it runs a cycle, captures nitrogen, runs too rich, burns the nitrogen, burns off the emissions, and then begins the cycle again. And so the problem with that is it causes the car to run like crap while it's running too rich, and it uses extra fuel because you're burning fuel to clean up the emissions control device.
I would think that this could happen very quickly, and it could be done the way we do the EVAP purge. They watch for certain cruise
opportunity.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. That's
transparent to the user. That actually would be ideal, right? Because there are times when the car naturally needs to run too rich anyway.
Yeah.
But maybe you can't do that during the test. And so in other words, the design of the test itself, because it's not real world conditions, lended itself to making it desirable to cheat at the test. In real world conditions, you wouldn't be sitting there. You would have times that you're running too rich. You would have times that naturally the device would have cleaned itself. But because you're running a test, you don't have those real world conditions that would have taken care of this problem.
Well, I think that in simpler terms, they just didn't want to have the full times emission control and its expense impact on fuel mileage and performance running all the time. But they had needed to meet the conditions, and they went a little bit further than doing that, and that they dropped the mechanics of that catalytic converter juice with the 30% urea. That isn't there because they found that they could pass emissions without it if they put enough EGR and stuff like that in it. And they just turn off the EGR and run 40 times. I mean, most of them are worse under real world conditions than they are under test. And some of them are much, much worse. But none of them are, the worst are like 6, 8, 10 times. But the Volkswagens were typically 40 times worse.
Yeah.
I mean, they were outliers in the violation.
And Volkswagen actually does make a mix of diesel emission solutions. Some of their cars do have a urea system, is my understanding. Other cars have this nitrogen trap approach that I was describing. And I believe it's the nitrogen trap models that ran into this emissions issue, not the urea solution. I think we've come up on our 1 hour tonight.
Yeah.
So again, we're only supposed to be on for 3 minutes. 3 minutes is about the average attention span of video watchers. So we have given you 20 shows this week. Please only watch 3 minutes a day until we're on next week. Jim, any words of wisdom for our viewers?
No, not now. No, I can't tell you anything important without an Excel spreadsheet and drawing some curves.
Exactly. I always think in terms of a whiteboard. If I have a whiteboard to write down my thoughts, I can tell what they are.
Same principle, different image.
You've been watching the Cadillac Chat. We do these on Thursday nights from 7:30 Central Time until we remember that we're not supposed to keep talking for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, or sometimes people log in late and we keep chatting anyway. Our friend Tim Carroll from Carroll Custom Cadillac is threatening to come on one of these evenings and talk about his new store and what's going on there. We have several other people who we'd love to see on, and you know who you are. So join us one Thursday night, and let me know if you need technical help, support, assistance. And if you're a viewer at home and you want to talk about Cadillacs live with Bruce and everybody else that's on, let me know that, and I'll help you figure out how to get logged in and teach you how to do Google Plus or whatever else we're using that week. I did see in the new Google Plus, Google Plus has the new interface that they're testing out, and I don't know how you get to Hangouts anymore from the new interface. So they may be waving Hangouts out, putting it out to sea, in which case we may have to go to Periscope or, Meerkat or something else or Skype. in order to keep going. But or what we may do is go to anyway. We'll work it out as we go. But we'll have to keep an eye on that.
I opened Google Hangouts tonight, and the call, the invitation for a call came up as a window in it. So that's the way it works.
Good. So I don't know how to launch it though. I had to go, I was on the new interface to see what that was like.
This is the new interface.
In the menus, it didn't offer me an opportunity to start Hangout on Air though.
Oh wow! So you go to Hangout on Air to open that one.
Yeah, but it's not in the menu anymore.
In the new interface.
So I wonder if they're doing away with it. So
it's a mouse over thing. You just missed it. Let me check mine real quick.
Stand by, and I'm going to hit stop broadcast. If you want to be on the Chat Cadillac with us, contact me and let me know that, and we will figure out a way to get you on. Thanks for watching. Check you next week.